Hey guys, today I do want to do a little hierarchy review with you guys. Here's our new little robot friend. If you have any ideas about a name, you can comment on Google Classroom after you finish your 5-question homework on what you want this little robot's name to be. So at the very top of our hierarchy for our shapes, we're going to be talking about polygons. As you know, those are going to be 2D closed shapes with straight sides. So there is another category of non-polygons, but for us, our top level is always going to be polygons. So streaming off of polygons, you're now going to go based on side lengths. So the polygon with the smallest number of sides are going to be triangles. That has 3 sides. Then we've got quadrilaterals, which has 4 sides. We also learned about 5-sided pentagons and 6-sided hexagons. But now I want to focus on just the quadrilaterals and the triangles and the different types of those shapes. Alright, so we're going to start with the different types of triangles. And whenever we identify triangles, we start by looking at their side lengths. So you can have an equilateral triangle, meaning all 3 sides are going to be congruent. Or you could have isosceles, which means only 2 sides are congruent, with one side being of different length. And then you've got scalene, where all 3 sides are going to be of different lengths. The next thing that we look at with triangles is going to be their angle measures. So we've got acute, I'm just going to put an A, maybe. You could have obtuse, O, or you could have right, which is 90-degree angle. So equilateral triangles can only ever be acute. Nothing else, all equilateral triangles will always have 3 angles of 60 degrees. But isosceles and scalene could be acute, obtuse, or right. Acute, obtuse, or right. It could be any of those depending on how the side lengths come together. Now, stemming down from our quadrilaterals, we start by going off in 2 different directions based on an added attribute, okay? So you can add the attribute of having parallel sides, and that first shape that you're going to find with at least one set of parallel sides is going to be called a trapezoid. The other kind of attribute you can add coming down from quadrilaterals is to have adjacent sides congruent. Remember, adjacent means touching. So in a kite, you've got 2 sets of congruent sides, but they're not the opposites. No parallel sides exist in a kite. It just has adjacent sides congruent. Now, coming down from the trapezoid side, you could add the next attribute of having 2 sets of parallel sides and 2 sets of opposite sides parallel. So you've got 2 sets of congruent sides, 2 sets of opposite sides parallel. So by definition, if they have 2 sides, 2 opposite sides parallel, they have to have at least 1. Therefore, all parallelograms are trapezoids. Coming down from parallelogram, we can also stem them off in 2 different directions by adding different attributes. So we're going to start with going to the rectangle. The added attribute for a rectangle is that it has 4 right angles, or all angles are 90 degrees. For a rhombus, it adds the attribute of having all 4 sides congruent. Because all 4 sides are congruent, that would mean that opposite sides are congruent as well. In a rhombus, opposite sides are also parallel. That means we can connect it to a kite, since kite's attributes are that adjacent sides are congruent. Adjacent again means touching, and since all 4 sides of a rhombus are congruent, that clearly means that all of the adjacent or touching sides are congruent. And then our last shape that we're going to add to our hierarchy is going to be a square. It's the quadrilateral with the most attributes, and it connects stemming from a rectangle because it has all the attributes of a rectangle, but it added the attribute of having 4 congruent sides, which means it can also stem from a rhombus and a kite because all 4 congruent sides would mean that adjacent sides are congruent as well. So I hope that you guys got a really, really good review from this. Don't forget, if you have any ideas for our little robot friend's name, you can post them on Google Classroom. Now don't forget to go to Google Classroom and complete your 5-question homework assignment.